Right, we'll start our Board of Commissioners meeting for December 12th. Everybody standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have the agenda review.
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
Move to approve.
Second. Second and moved and seconded. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, Commissioners' reports. Let's keep them in time now, but let's start with Drew.
Mine's a little bit shorter than sometimes, so I'll try to keep it to a half hour or less if I can. For our last board meeting, we had November 21st before we went out for the holidays, and let's see here, we approved those ditch levies, you know, both levies that we do every year. That was something I could see that was somewhat significant from that meeting. And then we had a real nice annual Thanksgiving luncheon right here at the courthouse, which I thought was nice. Everybody participated. And then we all went off for our holiday week for Thanksgiving. On Monday the 27th, I chaired the Region 9 TAC meeting, Transportation Advisory Committee. And Sam Parker from Region 9 is our staff transportation person there. And we had, Carol Clark from Vine and True Transit. She came and did an update on how things are going along with the transit that we have for our Tri-County. We've all been looking forward to now. This next year it should be more in full swing. As you've noticed, they've got, if you look in their parking lot, they've got the 2 new transit buses that they ordered. Had a good report from TZD. Scott Reeton is our new chair for the Safe Roads, which for Nicollet County and Blue Earth County. And so we've been putting that together over the last 2 years, meeting monthly for about an hour and a half every month. Lisa Bingham from MnDOT, and she came and did an update on the state, our district bike plan, looking at the different, biking routes and things like that. And then on Monday the 27th, had a meeting with Bob that same day. 28th, we had the County Parks Advisory Board meeting. Josh is our supervisor of parks, and we got Ryan as our public works engineer, and it was a fair turnout. I think several people were missing, but we had a good review of all the different parks we've got, park properties in Blue Earth County. We've got a lot of parkland to take care of in our county, and I think as time goes on, we might see that budget have to grow just a little bit somehow. I don't know how, but it needs to probably, especially since we took on the new, the park out there at Red Jacket Valley. And then on the, let's see here, the 29th, on Wednesday, they're just doing a kind of a short-term work group through the Minnesota Department of Health, and I was invited to be a part of this work group. We meet in St. Paul area. We meet all day long, and we talk. It's called Strengthening Public Health in Minnesota, and kind of doing a review of all the systems that we've got in place in Minnesota, which includes something that you're familiar with, emergency preparedness. See, that falls under that whole area, that whole category. And infectious diseases, immunizations, social health, in your community, all those issues are addressed, and we're doing sort of a review and trying to come up with something substantive after our 3rd meeting, which will be altogether at least 12 hours worth of meetings. And then I made it back just in time. Actually, I was a few minutes late on that same day. Community Ed and Rec Advisory Committee. And I just missed the award. They took photographs, but they have their own association, for community ed and recs across the state of Minnesota. And they gave a very nice award to our local one here because of our Spirit of Youth Award. And I That's something they've been doing for many years. The last 3 years I've been the MC for that, where we recognize either youth or adults who do things in our community to support youth and to build them up. And so that's a pretty nice event we do every spring. And in fact, if you want to, you know, you can turn in an application for somebody you think deserves that award. They'll be starting receiving applications in January for that. And then of course all of us went to the AMC conference. I got there late on Sunday night so I could be ready in the morning. Environmental and Natural Resources Policy Committee, we covered issues that needed to be addressed. Mostly though, it was removing some things also out of our platform proposals because they've already been addressed and they've been solved, which is a really positive thing that the state of Minnesota has helped on some of those issues. And then I attended my Optimist meeting last night. We had invited a speaker, Noor Hassan. He voluntarily coaches 60 to 100 children in our community, and he's working towards starting up another soccer club. Instead of just Mankato United, his is the Mankato Soccer Club. So he's working towards that. Mostly immigrant families' kids that go to that from a wide variety of backgrounds. And that pretty much ends my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks, Drew. Might as well Will.
Okay. Drew covered the last board meeting and the Thanksgiving lunch we had afterwards. On the 27th, I was in Slayton for the Rural Minnesota Energy Board and the PACE committee meeting. We did some loans for some energy projects from the PACE program and basically put together our final 2018 budget for the board. Then as Drew commented, we were all at AMC. I was there on Sunday for the board of directors meeting. Then on Monday I chaired my last public safety policy committee meeting. Passed the chairmanship on to Carla Bingham from Washington County. I had term limited out on that. Then we had the initial AMC meeting after that, and then I attended a couple of workshops. I went to the Beltrami County panel on their project equivalent to our Yellow Line project. It was very interesting to see the things that they were working on and some of the challenges they had that we didn't have. After that, I attended a Social Security workshop. It was very interesting. And of course, we had the awards banquet that night, and Blue Earth County was the recipient of the County of the Year award from MCIT, our insurance carrier, and then we also received an award for the Yellow Line project. So we were recognized for a couple of different things there. Of course, then on Tuesday we had the election of officers, and then I attended a couple more workshops. The one that I attended just by chance was then there were 5, the generational workforce workshop. Very interesting. It's interesting to see how that works. And then I attended a juvenile justice system workshop, and then after that, of course, we had our lunch and the AMC final meeting. I presented the public safety committee report at that meeting, and as Drew said, we had a couple of things we removed from our platform too, simply because they had the legislature had already passed them. So that was a good feeling. Yeah. Then of course we had department heads on the 6th. Then after that we had a ditch meeting in Cambria, where I think we've got that on the agenda today. And then on the 7th we had the SWCD and township officers. Township officers had a annual Christmas get-together that was very well attended, and a nice meeting and reception afterwards. And then yesterday I gave my monthly briefing at the Crystal Seasons in Lake Crystal, and that's my report.
Thank you, Will. Looks like there's a few minutes. Oh, I'll let you go, Vance, and I know you'll get done in time.
No, I'll try to whiz through this. Of course, our last meeting was November 21st, and then we had our Thanksgiving get together after that. That was very nice. On November 27th, I had a diversity board meeting. On November 28th, I had an airport commission meeting. Of course, all of us attended the AMC conference. I'm vice chair of the Transportation Steering Committee. The biggest thing that we did was we approved to support a constitutional amendment for auto parts sales taxes, which would increase funding to transportation from $145 million up to $307 million. I also attended the opening session. I went to a few different meetings. One was on parliamentary procedures, and another one was on drones. And then I attended the dinner and awards, and like Will stated, really proud of our county for what they've done in the past year and years. To get these awards is pretty amazing. December 5th, I attended the breakfast and officer election at the conference, and then I went to a meeting on what counties need to know, and it has to do with the roles and of government, financial, accounting, stuff like that. And then I went to a meeting on the open meeting law. We all go to those meetings, and it seems like every time you go, you learn. Yeah, either it tells you what you have been doing right, or tells you what you need to tweak a little bit and make sure you do it right. And then we had our business meeting, and that's already been covered. On December 6th, I had a breakfast with for the Transportation Alliance with the CEOs of all the Minneapolis engineering firms. Just trying to explain to them what the Transportation Alliance does and how it can help them. And then, of course, I attended the department head meeting here. December 7th, I also attended the township officers meeting. It was very nice. I really appreciate, which town was that? Decorah Township that put that on?
I think so, yeah.
Very nice meal. Very nice get together. And then yesterday I had my Transportation Alliance Executive Board and full board meeting up in St. Paul.
Nice.
And that's the end of mine.
Okay. Kip.
How many minutes was it?
It's longer than mine, that's all I know.
There's still some minutes. Go ahead, Kip.
After the last board meeting, I had my MVAC meeting, which the full board meeting. Everything's going very well there. We're wrapping up some year-end stuff. A little more discussion about the food hub, which is going to be closing because it just can't make any money doing it. So we'll be talking more about that at our EMP meeting next week, actually. Before we ran up to St. Cloud, I did manage to get over to the 4-H Awards banquet. I wasn't able to stay for the whole program, but I got to visit with almost everybody that was getting an award and made my rounds. And
very nice.
Got to stay for a good part of it. So we did have it, and I explained to them that we were all on our way or already at AMC in St. Cloud that day, so they understood. At AMC, yeah, the awards were already mentioned. The Health and Human Services Committee is my assignment. I was there 8 o'clock in the morning. We again had a few changes that we brought forward to the full session, and then I went to 2 drainage sessions. One was on public drainage in the right-of-way for highways, and then the other one was on ditch law with Ricky Noonan. And then I thought the opening session with Matt Burke was really entertaining, and he was a good speaker, and I thought the program went really well this year. It's just, they really had a lot of good sessions.
Yeah, they really did.
A lot of stuff going on.
The only thing I missed was the tabletop sessions. We had that for a couple of years straight. You know, where they have like a bunch of little tabletoppers and you can go out there and talk with them.
And then I was also at the department head meeting. Bob went over the several things we got going on in the county. Planning and zoning, we got a couple items coming up. You'll see that later this month, but it was all pretty straightforward. Had my MRCI meeting yesterday, and everything's going really well there. The candy business is strong for Christmas, and we got some products coming out, and things seem to be moving along pretty well there. And then I went to an MVAC meeting, Head Start Policy Committee meeting last night at the church in St. Peter's and Paul's, and they just talked about shaping and forming the Head Start policies for the young kids in the 9-county area with MVAC. That brings me today, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks, Kip. All right, I guess we can, it's right on target. Bring up Craig and on the district, on the ditch 48.
Morning, Craig.
Morning, Craig.
Good morning, Craig.
Morning, Ryan.
Mark,
Okay.
Mark, if you need to, I have some.
Oh,
I notice you have a little cold
Yeah.
this morning.
I want to say welcome to the final hearing on the proposed improvement to County Ditch 48. The purpose of this hearing is to consider the petition for the drainage project with all matters pertaining to the detailed survey report and the viewers reports. Mr. Craig Ostison will present the jurisdictional documents and a report from the Department of Natural Resources.
Okay.
Okay, Craig.
First of all, the hearing notice for this hearing was mailed to landowners on November 20th, 2017. The hearing notice was published in the Free Press on November 17th, 24th, and December 1st. Hearing for the hearing notice was posted on the front of the courthouse. As required by a Minnesota statute, I'll now read the DNR report into the record. That I received a letter from Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, Division of Ecological and Water Resources out of New Ulm, dated October 30th, 2017, addressed to myself. Subject: Final Engineers Report, County Ditch 48 Improvements, Blue Earth County, Minnesota. Dear Mr. Ostison, on behalf of the Director of the Division of Ecological and Water Resources of the Department of Natural Resources, I offer the following comments on the Engineers Report for the project referenced above. In accordance with Minnesota Statutes 103E.301, our agency provided the following comment on the preliminary engineering report in our letter dated February 21st, 2017. Reducing the outlet flows by the use of storage ponds will result in a reduction in sediment, nutrients, and help reduce downstream erosion. However, a designated trout stream is roughly 0.7 of a mile downstream of the outlet, and the inclusion of storage option 1 may increase the water temperature. The final engineer's report should include an assessment as to the influence of the storage option 1 on the downstream water temperatures. The influence of storage option 1 on the temperature is largely dependent on the retention time of the water in the pond. The less time the water retains in the pond, the less the water temperature will increase before it leaves the ditch system. Trout are sensitive to water temperature variations and excess sediments as it impacts overall fish health and spawning. Outlet flows should be modeled for the project without storage option number 1 being included in order to understand the magnitude of impacts of what would result from the increased outlet flows. Further coordination on this project should occur with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources before the final engineer's report is circulated for review. The intent of the comment was to have a comparison of the water temperatures and outlet flows with and without the inclusion of storage basins. However, the final engineering report indicated the storage basin is not being implemented due to the negative impacts that increased water and temperatures, and the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources requested that the storage basin not be implemented, which is not correct. The final engineer's report with no storage basin indicates the model outlet flow increases for the 10-year event of 11%, with a decrease for larger rain events. The Drainage Authority should direct the engineer to take another look at the designing the project to further reduce outlet flows for the 10-year event while minimizing potential water temperature increases. Options include, but are not limited to, wetland restorations, reducing tile sizes, water storage options that limit the increase in water temperatures, reducing tile sizes appears to be a viable option since many of them exceed the natural resources conservation services recommended half-inch drainage coefficient. Minnesota Department of Natural Resources finds the final engineer's report to be incomplete as it did not include a comparison of water temperatures, outlet flows with and without storage basins. Our agency recommends that the amended final engineer's report be developed to address issues identified in this letter. Please contact Kevin Mixon, Regional Environmental Assessment Ecologist, if you have any general questions about this letter. And it's signed Jim Seal, Assistant Regional Manager. There has been engineer and the DNR has had several correspondences back and forth regarding this issue. I'm not going to read those into the record at 9. That will be part of the engineer's report. He'll address those at that time. So I guess that's it for the jurisdictional doctrines and the DNR report.
Okay, at this time, Mr. Chuck Brandel of ISG, do you have a response to the DNR letter you would like to provide to the board and the audience?
Yes, I can do that. Do you want me to go through that as part of the report?
Sure.
Okay.
Do I go through the whole report, or is there anything?
I guess we also on the agenda we have a comment. Does the attorney have any comments?
I will defer to Mr. Brandel at this time, but I would like to make a comment during public comment.
Okay.
Recommend going right to the engineer's report.
Okay. Go ahead.
There we go. All right, thank you. Here for the final engineer's report for County Ditch 48. You guys know about ISG, so I'll skip over that part. Presentation overview, talk about watershed history, existing conditions, costs, looking at storage, and conclusion. Just to note, we did have a landowner meeting last Wednesday and went over this report. There are a few updates that I will cover that we talked about from that meeting. The CD48 primarily lies in Cambria and Butternut Townships, provides drainage for just under 1,100 acres of land, about 65, 66 acres or feet of fall throughout the system. Soil classifications are generally clay soils, and the majority of the watershed is in agricultural row crops. Originally constructed over 100 years ago, no major repairs or improvements. There's 20,000 feet of buried tile in the system, ranging from 24-inch down to 8-inch, with main line and 2 main branches, and then laterals off of those branches. So here is the watershed. Maybe hard to see on the screen. It should be in the handouts that we passed out. 24-inch outlet. The red line's the watershed boundary. There were a few areas that determined that were needed to be included with the project that we worked on with the viewers. And there's one more in section 34 that is to be taken out of the project, and we've gotten that information to the viewers after the meeting last Wednesday. And then another area that has been tiled out of the system in section 34, but still overflows and overland drains into the system. So we're recommending and worked with the viewers that still be included in the project. Tile capacities are generally below what we recommend for a drainage coefficient. These are not pictures of that system, but typical of what we see on 100-year-old systems. The outlet has a drainage coefficient of 0.26. Today's NRCS, U of M recommendations are a half-inch minimum for system tiling and for an adequate tile system. Most of the branches are below that. There are a few branches that met the requirements. The proposed improvement was to replace a majority of the system. So the 24-inch outlet would be replaced with a 36-inch line. That would be extended, and then the main line would continue on as a 24 and an 18. Branch 2, excuse me, was proposed to be a 24 down to an 18. One of the DNR comments was that we had a few lines that were above that half-inch drainage coefficient. The outlet of branch 2 could be changed to an 18-inch line and still meet the half-inch drainage coefficient. So we'd recommend that change. We've actually updated our model, and I'll go through that a little bit later. Branch 2 would be upgraded from a 15 and a 16 to a 24, and I mean an 18, excuse me. And branch 1 would be upgraded from a 14 to a 15. And there's lateral A and lateral B that are also included. Kind of zooming in on the majority of the tile system. We have obtained multiple private tile maps, which is a good practice when we're doing these type of improvements, and it really helps out with construction plans so that we avoid some of the private infrastructure that's out there, but also properly hooking it up. Proposed drainage coefficients, all above a half-inch drainage coefficient. Proposing to modify branch 2 to a 18, which would bring that drainage coefficient to very close to the 0.8 that it was at previously. At the landowner meeting, we went over typical tile installation. We use HDPE or RCP, and then we recommend that inserted T's be used for all the private connections. We also talked about intakes. We put intakes at road ditches and property lines and in low areas. In working with the DNR, we're proposing to put in Hickenbottom intakes on a majority of the system to help control sediment and larger flows into the system. This is a video, and I won't show the whole thing, but just of what typical tile construction looks like. We included damages in the project. Damages are the area that is disturbed during construction. You can see topsoil is spread out, clay is put back on, but we include that entire area that the contractor uses for construction in our costs to show installation. We also prefer a spoon bottom bucket that will limit the area of the bottom of the trench so the pipe cannot move, and it's a good way to construct dual wall pipe if that's the pipe that's selected. So, and then granular material over the top of the pipe, which they're doing right now, to make sure that we have good compaction on both sides. As part of the project, we are recommending that separable maintenance be used, that the repair costs be taken off of the proposed improvement costs when we look at net benefits. The system is of an age that we see a lot of these systems are failing and need of replacement. Also, there's portions of the system that have 1 foot to 15 inches of cover on them and are deteriorating fairly quickly because of that. The cost of the proposed system, if we were to repair the entire system, the cost is approximately $842,000. That includes all the road crossings. The improvement cost would be approximately $945,000. We do have one modification, lateral A. During the informational meeting, we found that there's some costs associated with that the improvement was slightly higher than it should be after discussing it with landowners. So that actually reduces by approximately $3,000. So I'm showing the total cost to landowners as shown in the presentation and in the report was $88,700. It'd be $85,700 with that modification. The viewers will go over their benefits but they have approximately $235,000 of benefits. When you look at separable maintenance, factor in road authority costs. We do have a couple county road crossings and Highway 68 that goes through the watershed. We have a total net benefit of $132,000. With the $3,000 change, that net benefit would be approximately $135,000. So thus the project would be cost effective. Like I said, we estimated temporary damages at 100 to 150 feet wide. If the project is approved and constructed, the old system will be abandoned. We will break that on property lines, use it as a private header, and in areas where it's completely collapsed, we will completely abandon it, crush it in a few spots so it will not be effective. As part of any project, drainage statutes require that we look at multi-purpose drainage management and consider that. We look at different types of measures throughout the system where we can implement grass waterways, wetlands, storage, different types of intakes, water and sediment control basins, alternative site inlets, wood chip bioreactors. This is an all-tile system. There were a few areas that could be utilized for storage or wetlands. Those were presented to landowners. We didn't get any bites on anybody wanting to do a wetland restoration. But we did, we are including alternate side inlets and proposed storage basin at the outlet of the system, which I'll go over shortly. So Craig read the DNR letter. In response to that, we've sent 2 memos back to the DNR, had a few emails and a phone conversation. We sent a draft memorandum that dealt with the temperatures of the proposed storage basin. Because of the study that has been done on County Ditch 57, we have very good numbers on what a storage basin does to temperature of water. You guys are well aware of CD 57. There is a pond constructed on the west side of the city of Mapleton. Serves about 1,500 acres. The proposed pond we were looking at is part of Ditch 48. It serves about 1,100 acres. Slightly smaller pond, but similar characteristics. What we see is that during the summertime, the pond raises the water temperature downstream by about 20 degrees. And it raises it to a point that is not healthy for trout or for trout at least. From the studies that I've looked at, trout like a temperature maximum of 68 degrees. We saw many cases where the pond raised temperatures downstream to about 70 degrees, where the tile water coming in was in the 50s to low 60s, and it raised it up into the 70s. So we looked at some alternatives, and I do have an email response from the DNR from December 6th that had 6 bullet points. Questions were, what were the outcomes of wetland restoration discussions? I just discovered that. Are there any other creative ideas to hold water on the landscape? And there's an area just at the outlet of this system. I'm going to jump out of my presentation to zoom in on that. Where the system drains into a ravine that is wooded, and we're proposing to put a small storage area in the ravine, which is not unprecedented. We did it as part of ditch JD 43 a few years ago down by Good Thunder, and that has been working very well. I was down there earlier this year. A riprap berm, and that would temporarily store some water in the ravine area, which is covered by trees, so we can hopefully reduce any impacts of temperature and still provide some small storage. We looked at how that affects the outlet flows, which is something that the DNR is very concerned about. The storage area does a nice job of reducing the 2-year event, but had little effect on the 5 or 10-year event. The 25, 50, and 100-year, because of the way we're modifying the tile system and the timing and the overland flow, those flows actually go down. So with the inclusion of the 18, reducing one of the branch lines, adding storage, and adding inlets, we can get 4 out of 6 of the rain events that we look at to be reduced in peak flow. So I think we're accomplishing some of the goals that the DNR wants us to see by reducing flows and not increasing temperatures. At the landowner meeting, one of the adjacent landowners did speak up, and they had no objections to us doing this work in the ravine. So, I can go over the DNR report in more detail. A few of the other comments. Let's start from the beginning. That we worked on were was a bioreactor considered? We did not consider a bioreactor just because of the cost benefit ratio on the project. So then we also looked at what the influence of the tile flows will have on the base flow of the trout stream. And looking at that, they were insignificant. So, based on that, we recommend, with the modified changes to the cost for lateral A, the watershed changes, adding the riprap storage at the end, that the project is cost effective, practical and feasible, and it would be a public benefit and contribute to public welfare, and recommend approval at this point. So, it's a summary of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
When do we ask
Yeah.
Chuck any questions?
You got a question? Okay.
As a board or not?
Well, I think
I
we
can
could
ask-
ask questions now, I think, or
Oh,
we have to wait. Yeah.
all right. Well, I appreciate your report, thank you, and for your efforts to look at the options too, for trying to see if there's any other improvements, that long-term, on the area there. So this ditch system is 100% enclosed, there's no open ditches anywhere?
No,
That was my biggest question. I thought there might have
Yes.
been somewhere. I was trying to find it in the report and I couldn't find it.
it's all
If
tile.
there's any at all, for like a second stage ditch instead of a pond, because second stage ditches are temporary
Yep.
forms of storage that might not increase the temperatures as much. It just, if you have a big rain event, it kind of fills them up a little bit and they move down and then they go down again, kind of. And it seems like they've worked well, but so this thing you're proposing is kind of like having a small area of a second stage,
A little bit.
because it's a stream ravine.
And it's a filter, it's like a filter basin. So putting rock across making a rock weir instead of like a concrete weir, the water comes in and slowly percolates through, drops
Through
off
or
some sediment,
over, whatever it has to
and
do.
over during larger events.
Yeah,
So we provide a little bit of storage and be somewhat shaded, so
Yeah.
we're not increasing water temperatures.
I would think you'd have to cut down some of the trees.
We will have to cut down
Yeah.
a little bit of trees right at the where the berm
Yeah.
is at.
Yeah. I mean, even down where the proposed water storage area is, you might want to cut some down.
But we'll keep some at the top, so we'll be partially shaded.
You know what happens when it fills up with water, even if it's for a few days, some of those trees just, they just tip over.
Yeah,
And so it's good to get rid of them if you can.
Yeah, I anticipate we'll have a small piece of equipment in the bottom of the ravine and then something coming in from the side. Probably an excavator from the side, and maybe a larger skid loader at the
Yeah.
bottom.
That sounds good, yeah. Have they really identified any trout in that stream? I mean, has anybody ever,
I don't know.
you don't know? Anybody know? Landowners? I'm just curious if anybody's seen any trout down there. 'Cause I haven't heard of anybody fishing trout down there, so I didn't know.
So we addressed the temperature comment, and we have very good data on CD57 that just show that. So
Yeah.
something to take into consideration. If there's other trout streams that we're designing storage on, we may need to be more creative like this.
All right, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
And
thank
at
you,
this
Chuck.
point, we could have Mr. Dan Ruby come forward. Please come forward to the podium and present the redetermination of benefits.
We gotta switch computers here.
Morning, Dan.
Morning, Dan.
Morning, Dan.
Okay, my name is Dan Ruby. I'm from Jackson, Minnesota. I'll be doing the presentation here on the redetermination. I went to Mankato State University. I farmed for 20 years and I'm currently a wetland banker. Bill Anderson was a loan officer and he's retired. Gary Ewert went to the University of Minnesota and he's currently a farmer. Ron Rehnquist, he's a certified appraiser, 35 years of experience in drainage and engineering. This report covers the redetermination of benefits for a previously constructed drainage system. It's a comparison of the conditions prior to the artificial drainage with those that should exist with the drainage system in a reasonable state of repair. The viewing process. The viewing process is a mass appraisal process that values a universe of properties as of a given date using a standard methodology, employing common data, and allowing for statistical testing. Here are our aids to viewing. We use USDA soil surveys, GIS photos and data, Minnesota LIDAR, yield averages and production costs from Minnesota State College and University Farm Management records. We use sales data from the Blue Earth County Assessor's Office, and we visually inspect each of the 40-acre tracts. Here's a summary of CD48. It was constructed in early 1900s. There was an improvement completed in 1919. The watershed consists of 1,093 benefited acres. The tile system with 20,415 feet of tile. There is no ditch and there will be no buffer purchase. There has been maintenance done. Provides outlets for Butternut Township sections 2 and 3 and Cambria Township sections 26, 34, 35, and 36, and it outlets into a water course and then into the Minnesota River. Here's an image of this watershed. The yellow line is the watershed boundary and the blue is the tile line. Drainage then and now. At the informational, I did give more slides on the history of drainage, farming, but I did narrow it down to a few just to make the point that we've come a long way since the early 1900s when this ditch was placed. And this is how the early ditches were started. On the wagon there you can see what was called a swamp angel. It's being pulled by oxen or bulls. Here that implement is in the ground and they hooked upwards of 30 bulls to that to make it happen, to initially start drying out the properties. In the early 40s, this is how it was done with teams of upwards of 20 men in the ditch with shovels. And here's how the futuristic way they're doing it now, with a big V plow that can go up to 5 feet deep without disturbing the soil column. There's no trench with this type of ditch making. This is what a current pattern tile looks like. Trenches somewhere between 50 and 75 feet apart. We've come a long way in farming also. This is how these farms, the soil here was broken up with a man behind a pair of oxen or bulls. It was designed for hay and pasture. This is how They planted corn in the 40s. This was considered modern then. Now a 24-row planter is common. So we have increased the needs for drainage, because when you get a large planter like this stuck, where do you hook on without doing any damage to the machine? They need the drainage now. We've also changed in the way we get grain. This is the way they threshed. And here's a promotional picture, but it just emphasizes the fact that agriculture has changed. In the research, we did look up the various historical pictures. This is the earliest one we had to look at, was from 1938. And this is the newest one we had to look at that was in our vehicle when we were viewing. We look at soils. We study the contours to know which way the water flows. We use LIDAR, or digital elevation model. The browns are the highland, the whites and the purples are the lowest elevations. This is an image of the outlet. The purple represents the water course it goes into. It all boils down to benefits and damages. You can read this, but the heart of it is, if the farmer benefits, he needs to share in the cost. If he's damaged, he needs to be compensated for what's been done to him. Here are the benefit classifications based on conditions before drainage. A stands for open water and cattails. B, seasonally flooded hay and pasture. C, needs drainage. D, typically does not need drainage. NB is for non-benefited. This category is held for trees, conservation, wetland areas, and native, non-converted. And our final column is for other. We mainly use that for roads. The valuation prior to drainage: A, standing water and cattails, 0 market value, 0 economic productivity. B, seasonally flooded pasture ground, market value $1,200 to $1,600 with an economic productivity of $75. C, wet subsoil, marginal cropland, market value $3,500 to $4,500, economic productivity of $504. And the D lands, the uplands, market value $3,500 to $6,500 with an economic productivity of $598.50. And here's the potential value if these properties are brought up to the NRCS guideline standard. The A ground will now be drained slough area, medium class ponded agricultural ground. Market value goes from a 0 to $4,500 to $5,500 with an economic productivity of $579.60. The B class is well-drained ground, high class. Its market value is $5,500 to $6,500 with an economic productivity of $604.80. The C ground, well-drained ground, best class, market value $7,500 to $8,500 with an economic productivity of $630. The D ground, it's well-drained ground, high land, it's class with improved farmability. Market value $4,500 to $7,500. Economic productivity is $623.70. We use the income approach to value. We consider the corn and soybean rotation to have an adjusted income of around $630 for a 2-year period. The direct production expense, a 2-year rotation of corn and soybeans has an expense of $347.11. This chart represents the benefit value classifications. Benefit values for A's $46.10, B $34.40, C 2110, and the D acres benefit by $590. This is an example. Class B benefits per acre potential productivity value for 100% is $630. It's adjusted for the 96% productivity at $604. Production cost again is $347.11 for a 2-year rotation. Beginning productivity value was $75. Change in productivity value was $182. The private improvement potential was a cost of $36. The annual benefit to the farmer was $146.69. When you capitalize that for 25 years at 0.5%, that comes to $3,439, or we round it to $3,440. Efficiency. Okay, what this does is it takes the net benefit is reduced when actual conditions do not meet NRCS hydrologic efficiency standards. This tile system does not meet the NRCS standards. But the efficiency, what it does is it puts a number on how good the drainage system in the ground is today. Like under the A's, it's saying that what's laying there today is 60% of the standard that we're trying to get to. So for the A's, it's 60%, B's 75, C's 90, D's 95% of what's actually in the ground. Here's in the middle of the report on the spreadsheet. It goes the proximities. The middle column has proximity rate. Proximity is used to adjust benefits to allow owners not directly on the system a reduction for the cost of tile or connection to the system. This is done by distance and a joint cost for connection. When you look at the blue line on the right, the quarters that have direct access to the tile line are charged at 100%. As you go quarter by quarter away, we leave money on the table so that those farmers can afford to connect to the system. We also study the roads. We measure the roads, and then we give them a grade of A, B, C, or D. In this example, in the top chart there, the lengths are listed. On the bottom chart, the A's, the road pays $28.40 per foot, the B's $11.40, the C's $2.85, and the D's 60 cents per linear foot. Here's a maintenance example. This is the first parcel holder on the report. This person had 38 acres. They had 0 A's, 2 B's, 17 C's, and 2 D acres. Their gross benefit was $38,564. Their net benefit was, after the proximity, was $36,635.80. Their share of the maintenance cost was $18,241.06 out of a grand total of $785,853 the project. And their share of the maintenance was 2.3%. Okay, the 2017 redetermination of benefits for Ditch 48. The land benefits were $1,569,231.23. The road benefits were $9,095.46. Living total benefits $1,578,326. There were 35 acres of A's, 107 acres of B's, 544 acres of C's, 359.5 acres of D's. There was 20,745 feet of tile for a total benefited acres of 1,045.50. Now there's 3 or 4 slides on the changes based on the improvement. Okay, the efficiencies, when you look at the efficiency of the redeterminations, we were looking at for A's was like 60%. That's what was in the ground. The improvement is, the efficiency for the improvement is what we are going to add to the system to make it better. So in the lower, it's impossible to see that, but in the lower chart, we add to the A's. The A was 60. We now add 30% efficiency. So now potentially the system will be 90% of what it could be. We're improving things. The B's, we're going from 75% efficient to 95% efficient. The C's, we're going to 100%, and the D's, we're going to 100% of efficiency. There were 2 changes at the informational meeting. The first property was of John Engels. It was tiled north to the river. The runoff will be charged as D's. So rather than him paying for the subsurface coming to 48, the subsurface moisture is going away. The surface moisture is coming in, so we're charging him D's for that property. The other one was Levon Daltrup, and that is tiled out to 47, CD 47. Okay, the 2017 improvement determination of benefits, the amended value is $229,797. That's the end of my presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
That's a question.
You sure can.
Yep.
Okay. Just a quick question, and I think I've asked it before a long time ago, maybe to Ron, but when you're doing the redetermination of benefits, and I know you're trying to do the best possible, review, and there's always room for errors and things like that. There's got to be some room, but the thing is what goes through my mind is if I have a farm, let's just whatever it might be rated, let's say it's A or B or something like that, but even if it's upland, what kind of considerations are put into the fact of value if you've got marginal soils? The soil itself takes a lot of expense to keep it going, even for production, regardless of the drainage. Is that an impact of this, or is it just strictly drainage impacts?
We have a layer for soils, and we review that constantly.
Okay.
So it's just part of viewing. We use the old soils maps it's kind of a benefit because we can measure based off of those soils maps. And so we're continuously looking at the soils.
To see if it's really a B or a C,
yes,
or where it might be, because there
yes,
might be some issues with
and sometimes the soil maps don't make sense. But yet we can still use them as a basis.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just try to help answer your question, Mr. Campbell. The reason that there is a range of values for each of those classes is not every acre is the same. And if you notice on some of those upland marginal soils, which is normally where those would fall, the range of value is much greater, before and after.
Okay.
So we try to address the fact that not every soil is the same. If there are enough soils, areas of those soils, we will establish a separate value to reflect that. But if it's just a couple of acres of steep ground versus the rest,
averages out.
It's at the bottom of that range, but within our determination, we think that the value increase falls within that range of values.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Great. Thank you. Well, I think at this point, if there are no other questions, Dan?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll now open this hearing for public comments. This hearing is being recorded, so please state your name and address, and as a courtesy to others wishing to comment, please limit your comments to about 3 to 5 minutes. So at this time, do we have anybody wishing to make comments regarding the Ditch 48? Okay, anybody wishing to come forward and make comments on this, on the Ditch 48? Okay, for a third time, anybody wishing to make comments, please come forward at this time. Okay, we'll bring it back to the board then for action. Which are the wishes of the board?
What pages are the resolutions on, please?
That's right there.
The first resolution for consideration is on page 157 of your packet.
All right,
It's
thank
to
you.
approve the redetermination of benefits.
Yep, 157.
I'll move approval.
That's for the redetermination resolution, so, yep.
Second.
Which has been moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Now you just have the other action item is the findings and orders resolution, which is on 162, right?
Move approval.
This has
Second.
been moved approval and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay.
1/3. One more resolution.
One more of the financing resolution, correct. That's on page 166 of the packet, so.
Move approval.
That's been moved by Will. Your second. Second by Vance. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right.
Thank you, everybody, for your
Yep.
reports.
Thank you for your time and
you
your
very much.
efforts.
All the efforts.
I appreciate it much.
Mr. Chairman, we will provide a copy of the report with the recommended changes to be attached to the order.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
How about that? See?
Take a break.
You are good.
You're amazing.
Even with my
even when you have a cold.
Even after cold and
Hold on, Mark.
Chair people, Ryan has a report if you'd like to do that before the break.
Oh, yeah, did she?
I'll make it real quick.
Oh, that's right, Ryan does have
Still got a
a
report, sorry about that.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So, we did get done at 10.
No.
Yeah.
Public hearing.
Quick and sweet.
Go ahead, Ryan.
It's good.
All right.
Inspection.
Forgot about that.
I have to confess, on the summary page there, I put the wrong ditch number. It says CD 27, it should be 97.
What is it?
97.
Yeah.
97?
The report is right, the summary page, I just, bad fingers.
You see it on the rest of the material, it has 97.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify that. We have issues with beaver dams. There's not a cleared buffer area out there. We have an agreement with the landowner that he will allow us to clear the trees. So the cost is to clear the trees, clean up the beaver dams. We have an approximate balance of a little over 27,000 there. Approximate costs are 15 to 20. Work should start actually next week if approved.
It's gonna cost that much, huh?
There's a lot of trees.
Whoa.
Costs money to take trees down.
Yeah.
Why did the beavers take them down?
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Right. Except for they pile them in the ditch.
Take the wrong trees.
Yeah.
I'll move approval.
That's what I was just asked. It's been moved and there's a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thanks, guys.
All
Now we
right,
can take our
that
break.
concludes.
Thank you.
Report done. Thank you much. We'll take about whatever 5-10 minute break. All right, we'll continue with our meeting here, and we'll have municipal storm sewer system ordinance public hearing. We have Scott Fichtner.
Morning, Scott.
And Scott.
Good morning.
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 And Ryan.
man.
How are you doing, Ryan?
Good, yourself?
Good. All right. Okay. Well, we could open up to the public hearings for the proposed municipal storm sewer system, also referred to as MS4 ordinances. Mr. Scott Fichtner, Environmental Service Director, here to provide an overview for the board and the audience. So
Thank
go
you,
ahead,
Mr.
Scott.
Chair, members
Yep.
of the board.
Thank you.
In October 2014, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency notified Blue Earth County that governmental entities within the Mankato metropolitan area were being designated as municipal separate storm sewer system, or MS4 operators, and were required to develop MS4 program meeting the minimum permit requirements under the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, the NPDES General Permit. MS4s are publicly owned and operated infrastructures used solely for stormwater management. It includes curbs, ditches, culverts, stormwater ponds, and storm sewer pipes. Common owners of MS4s include counties, cities, townships, and public institutions. Primary goal of the MS4 program is to improve water quality by reducing pollutants that enter the the public systems and discharge into rivers, lakes, and wetlands. Operators of MS4s are required to designate their program or design their program to reduce the discharge of pollutants into the waters with maximum extent possible, to protect water quality, and to satisfy requirements of the Clean Water Act. After the MPCA issued the coverage to Blue Earth County MS4 program, the county became responsible for compliance with the requirements of the NPDES general permit, including meeting a number of deadlines over a 3-year period to implement the 6 minimum control measures outlined in the NPDES permit. Initial permit requirements are to develop enforcement procedures for construction site stormwater runoff control program and an illicit discharge detection and elimination program. Environmental Services, Public Works, and the county attorney's office have worked on the development of these ordinances to meet the requirements, along with the assistance of the city of Mankato. Mankato has operated an MS4 program since 2007 and developed a regional program that Blue Earth County has joined previously. The proposed ordinances are consistent with the regional program. The county board has also held several workshops to discuss the MS4 program requirements and proposed ordinances. The illicit discharge ordinance regulating pollutants in the MS4 system and the construction site runoff ordinances regulating land disturbances have been included in your packet and are presented for public hearings. Notices of public hearings for the proposed ordinances were published in the newspaper on December 2nd, and the ordinances have been available for review at the Environmental Services Office since that time. Thank you.
All right, just thank you, Scott. At this time we'll open up for public comment portion of the MS4 illicit drainage detection and elimination ordinance. If you'd like to comment, please come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record. And again, if there are any comments from the public, please come forward now. And our last call for any comments from the public, please come forward to address the board. Okay, hearing none, we'll go bring it back, the item back to the board for consideration.
Move to approve.
Second. Second on the ordinance.
I have a point of clarification.
Go ahead, Drew.
Or information. I see we've got several resolutions, so I mean, which one are we doing? I'm just curious. We're just doing there's a discharge resolution.
Illicit discharge one.
Yeah, illicit discharge.
Okay, thank you.
The resolution, Drew, is on page 187 of the packet.
I got it right in front of me.
Okay.
Right here.
And we've talked about this at great length at work sessions. Ryan's been in, your staff has been in, Scott.
Right.
We appreciate all your efforts putting it together. I know you two work together a lot, offline also, so
Yes.
thank you for all that hard work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. If it will take, well then we can vote on it.
Yep.
I hear a motion and a second.
We got it.
We got that.
We did that already, didn't we? Okay. Okay, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. All right, now we have then the second.
Purpose, intent.
Yep. So at this time we'll open up to the public comments on this portion of the MSR construction site runoff ordinance, control ordinance. If you'd like to comment, please come to podium and state your name and address for the record. Any comments from the public? Again, state your name and address. Last call for any comments from the public. Okay, we'll bring it back to the board for consideration.
Move approval of the construction site runoff control ordinance.
Been moved. And the second? Is there a second?
Second.
Everyone? Okay. Do we have any discussion? All those in
Same comment as I made earlier. Thank you to the staff for working on it hard. We've seen several work sessions and appreciate the time.
Yep, and a little bit of time on it, yeah.
Well, I
All right.
think it's going to be good for Blue Earth County.
Yes.
You know.
Yep. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
One more.
Well, we've got one more, yep. We got the resolution for approving the fee schedule. That's on page 206, yep. Okay. Do we have the motion on that?
I'll move the fee
No.
schedule.
Do you have to have a public hearing on that? No.
No,
No.
No,
it's not
not
required
a-
for the
okay.
fee schedule.
Okay, do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Do you hear the second? Okay, Vance seconded. Any discussion on the fee schedule? Approving it? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. All right, now we're done.
I'm sorry, Chair, who seconded that motion?
Vance.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for all your work on that. That was,
Yep, that's a lot of work.
that's an amazing amount of work, so thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott.
Right into Ryan's report.
Yeah.
Just kind of fall right in, don't you,
You
Ryan?
just gotta move into the.
Well, I do have to thank Scott and Rick for all of their hard work, because they really carry the water on this component of the ordinance and the development, so did a fantastic job.
Carried the water, how appropriate.
Carried the water.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
It's a punny use of the
Yes,
term.
yes, very good.
Our first order of business today this is more of an informational item, but the action item is listed under as the National Bridge Inspection Standards NBIS Annual Compliance Review. In your packet, we have the title sheet from the Blue Earth County Bridges NBIS Compliance Review, as well as the City of Mankato Bridges. The first one I believe that's shown is for Blue Earth County. You'll see our ranking. And the rank in our class is for counties and other agencies of our number of structures and our relative population and size, and thus, frustratingly, there were two areas where we were listed as non-compliant, and that's in lower risk frequency of inspections and higher risk frequency of inspections. What that boils down to is that the bridges have to be inspected on a biannual basis, and they have to be inspected within the month that you had previously inspected them. So if it was inspected in October of 2014, it should have been inspected in October of 2016.
Okay.
As you recall, September, October, November of 2016, very, very wet, and the water levels were very high, which impeded our ability to go out and inspect these bridges. And our staff, I don't fault them at all, went out, looked at the bridge. I can't do a good inspection of the bridge, so I can go back out at a later date. We went out November, December, January, completed our inspections so that we could actually review the elements, get a good view of them, and make sure we're doing quality inspections. Because we didn't record that we went out and looked at it initially and record that date to document that we did it within the month, we got zinged for what really is a petty metric that they evaluate you by. So in essence, that's really what we were dinged for, was because the date on that goes into this management software wasn't the same day within the same month, that we went out at a later date that wasn't the same month of that said year. So that's where we were listed as non-compliant, and that drug our whole review down. We did have actually an audit this year with one of MnDOT's bridge inspection folks. Very good meeting, very productive. That's where we learned that we should have gone out and put in this date that we actually went out there, and then noted that we couldn't do a quality inspection.
So that would, you
kicked the
would
can
just,
down the
you would
road.
just note that you were there, water
Yes,
levels were
and
high.
that would have cleared us completely. So hindsight being 20/20, you learn something new and we move on. He had no concerns over the quality of inspection, the qualifications of our staff. He was more than happy with what we're doing. It's just last year was wet, and it's all runs downhill from the Federal Highway Administration. So with that being said, you have to meet their...
What's with the substantially compliant?
That's I think there was one. It was
There's
so
load
let's stay on
ratings
the...
and update data.
Yep, and that's where they have a ranking criteria, so that they have all of these different criteria underneath this metric that they evaluate you by. And if you meet, all but one of these 13 or 14 criteria under that specific metric, you're substantially compliant. You meet them all, you're compliant. So again, it was kind of a ticky-tack type of, this form wasn't submitted or we didn't get it. Truthfully, they'd had some errant information when they came down for their audit, and so we were able to prove our point on a couple of those items. But our staff takes a lot of pride in the work that we do, and takes pride in this type of work and the importance of it. So we were frustrated to see non-compliance on our list, and we'll be working to remedy it. But I think
What are the consequences of that?
really, nothing unless we
start developing a pattern where we're having non-compliance for 4 or 5 years straight. So.
Good.
Okay,
All right.
and then the second one that you'll see in the listing is the NBIS for the City of Mankato bridges that we inspect. Those we didn't have the water issues, so you can see we have 100% compliance on those bridges.
Okay.
The second order of business that is an actual action item is the City of Mankato Routine County State Aid Highway Maintenance Agreement. This is a renewal of the previous agreement that was authorized in 2013. There are some slight revisions to the normal maintenance activity amounts. We had found, I think the initial agreement had an amount of like $1,000 that they would have to receive authorization from the county to do anything above and beyond. As you're fully aware, $1,000 in maintenance or repair does not go very far, so we raised that a little bit to $2,500. We'd also updated to the routes and the relative mileages, which is included on Exhibit A of your packet. I'm not certain which page it is. It's the last page of this agreement. So with that, I would recommend approval of this routine maintenance agreement.
I'll move approval. It's been moved and second. Any discussion on the resolution here? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. All right. Then you got the right of way.
Yes. Item number 3 is the County State Aid Highway 1, Old Minnesota Highway 66, right-of-way vacation for the segment from Good Thunder to south of County State Aid Highway 9. This is the vacation final step required to turn this property back to the underlying landowners. This is effectively the land that is old highway right-of-way. As we move the alignment, it left remnant pieces. We're turning those back to the underlying landowners, as was attached in the right-of-way plat number 34, where it was highlighted with those parcels. That will not be recorded, however, because those parcels are already referenced in the resolution. However, I put it in there for your guys' information so you knew where those parcels were.
There's quite a few little pieces there.
Yep, little slivers of land that'll be turned back to agricultural.
Okay.
How far does that go down, Ryan? Does that go right to the top of the hill there before you go down on?
Yeah, especially where we pulled away and went away from the ravine. We've moved the road to the west, and then as we curved around the spec farm, that's primarily the areas, and as is shown on the attachment.
Okay. What about the other curve, past 9, going past 9, Rapidan Road, and you go about a half a mile past 9, it starts to curve and go down? Is that included in here? Because I went through all of them and I wasn't sure if that was one of them or not.
Yep, the one where we.
But right here, I think it's in front of me, but
Yep.
It's going to be
effectively where the road alignment shifted and we created remnant parcels.
Bigger. We
That's
haven't
where
done it
this
yet,
is
that's what I
highlighted.
mean.
Oh, no, that'll be done in the future.
That'll be done. So
Yeah.
that's not in this.
No,
this-
until we got the project completed.
Oh,
We
okay.
can't do this. Is cleanup after the
Thank
fact.
you. Yep, thanks.
I'll move approval.
Been
Second.
moved and second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries.
All right. Item number 4, State of Minnesota Agency Agreement for Federal Participation in Construction. This allows MnDOT to accept federal funds for local agencies' use on projects, and that's all authorized through our delegated contract process agreement that we have in place with the state. This is a renewal of the agreement in order to meet some, revise some of the verbiage so that they can meet the new and changing federal guidelines.
Move to approve.
Yep. Been moved and second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries.
Right.
And we got a resolution here, huh?
Yep. Item number 4 is resolution for agency agreement. This is a resolution supporting the county board entering into this agreement.
I'll move for approval of that.
Moved and is there a
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries.
All right.
And we just have the,
Informational items. A little bit of an update on some of our construction projects that are still underway. Rapidan Dam, the 4 sluice bays underneath the bottom of the dam have been filled with concrete, so that's provided us with some additional stability. Contractor has their cofferdam access road around the perimeter. They've begun dewatering the downstream apron to discover the extents of the scour holes. Unfortunately, the scour hole is much larger than we had anticipated. In fact, it really encompasses a large portion of the downstream apron. We think when it was poured in 2011 that we had challenges dewatering, and there just wasn't a strong bond formed between the underlying apron from one of the previous projects and the concrete that we were pouring, and there was enough uplift pressure that it actually peeled a large slab of that concrete out. Tremendous amount of forces down there, and always very difficult construction to get in there and get it properly dewatered. We also think there's actually a spring underneath that slab where there's quite a bit of hydraulic pressure being pushed up, so we're actually finding water bubbling up out of the ground. So we're going to deal with that with a well point to dewater it, and we'll actually leave that to alleviate that pressure from underneath that slab with the next pour. We're working with Eagle Creek Renewable Energy, our consultant engineer at Kleinschmidt Engineering, who specializes in dam work, and getting approval from the Federal Energy Regulatory Committee for the repair methods, which will include doweling around the perimeter of the existing slab that's there, doweling into the face of the dam and down into the apron that's underneath, and pouring about 2 feet of concrete with reinforcing steel all around it. So we're working with the contractor to finalize that revised repair plan for the apron. Then we would have dowels in and around the perimeter, cage of large reinforcing steel to tie it all together, and then we would pour that concrete back in. After that has cured, after we get approval to do it, complete it, maybe this week, if not very early next week, we would move into moving the cofferdam and access road, because they actually believe there may be more undermining happening where they have the road constructed. They're really doing all of that work in the wet. So then we would move the road out, dewater another portion of the apron, and make a determination of additional repairs that are necessary. So I'm glad we have additional budget to cover it in our state grant. I'm glad we're down there doing the work, and that we're actually able to see what we're working with finally. Frustrating to see that, but we want to make sure that we're going to do as good of a repair as is feasible, so that we're not in there again in the next couple of years. But very, very challenging construction.
Is it that same grant that was awarded 2 years ago?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Initial repairs came in significantly less.
Yes, the grant amount was, I believe, 2.4 million, and our contract came in at about 1.2.
Okay, so
with some of the, revisions that were necessary at the upstream end, we're at about 1.4, so we still have some room.
That's good.
We've also been in parallel working on a resurfacing of the left or west wall where it steps down. That's going to be kind of on hold until we figure out how much extra this costs us, because this is critical, whereas that's really it's important, but it's not a structural component. Yes. So stay tuned. We'll keep battling away with it. We also have the County State Aid Highway 5 bridges, number 07526, 7239, 7240, north of Mankato on County State Aid Highway 5, 3rd Avenue underway. Bridge 7526, which is the south bridge by the Better Stone Quarry. The existing deck has been removed. The new deck has been poured and is curing right now, so they're heating the underside of that to conserve enough heat and keep it within MnDOT's specified temperatures for the concrete to cure to reach its adequate strength. There's also a drying period that's required. It takes about a month, generally speaking. So sometime around New Year's we would anticipate pouring the other two bridge decks.
Oh, okay.
So probably the contractor, after the concrete reaches adequate strength, they'll remove the covering that's over the top of the bridge, put on the bolt-on metal railings to the edges, ramp the approaches in with some gravel or bituminous millings for the season, move on to do the other two bridge decks, and then next spring come back, touch up the remaining grading, guardrail, pave in the approaches, and that type of work. So working out fairly well so far. We'll continue.
Does that add a significant cost when you're talking about heating up the decks and stuff?
It adds a little.
I wake up this morning at 8 degrees, I mean, it's like...
In this circumstance where you don't have channels that are conveying water constantly, it's less challenging because they're effectively tenting the bridge. They're using the old bridge deck or the formwork, draping plastic down and running an LP heater underneath so that it tents it up. It keeps the heat inside and it heats it from the bottom side, kind of like in-floor heating.
Sure.
So it adds a little bit of cost, but in perspective, the fact that we're not significantly delaying the gravel pits and the industrial use on that road is also an offset for the public benefit.
Yeah.
But yes, there is.
It's got to be done, but I'm just saying that it's.
There is.
I mean, summertime work on that would be so much easier than.
Indeed. Yep. And it's just tough to get the concrete to flow and get the cure, and you have to be watching the weather. So it does come with some challenges, but this was a good circumstance we felt where we could have this contract underway.
Okay.
Planning projects update: County Road 1, County State Highway 1 from CASA 9 to Mankato. North segment plans are being finalized by SRF. We'll submit those to MnDOT for approval. Jack Hermer is underway buying right-of-way. We've had pretty good meetings so far with the landowners out there. I think a lot of people are very eager to see that road improve. They don't necessarily want to deal with the construction for a year to two, but that's the price of progress to a certain extent. The south project, the plans are at about 60%, moving towards 90%, so we've been working with our consultant engineers on those.
Has there been much of a change on that, Ryan, at all?
Not necessarily.
What we've seen last as a board, I mean, has there been much of it?
No, you know, we've got the retaining walls, the alignment hasn't really changed necessarily. I could certainly, when we get those 90% plans, or the next stage of that, I could bring it into a work session for informational purposes. But no, I don't believe the scope has changed since we looked at it.
I just know there was that one issue that was under question where it connects on the south side of 90. You know, we looked at options there. The house has the house issue.
And so we are working with the landowners there. They've expressed interest in moving their house away from the road. The road will be moved over 10 feet. They've expressed interest, so we're working with them through, we've actually hired WSB to handle that because it requires relocation, which is very challenging. We want to make sure everything's done properly. So they're going to be, as a mitigation, paid to the cost of relocating the house, as well as the loss of the vegetated buffer of the tree line and everything else. So we'll be working with them, and that's been quite a process. We've gone through several design iterations with them, but it's been very good, I think, because in the end, both ourselves and them are comfortable with the approach, and it's been very good, I think. So, and then we're still underway and moving ahead with our County State Highway 90 and Minnesota Highway 22 roundabout. CASA 14 from Minnesota Highway 30 to CASA 4. Design is underway, but given some staff personal matters, we may be looking at moving that over to a consultant contract so that that can be accommodated and completed, and look at having a open house meeting sometime in January, depending how that's moved forward.
Quick question, Ryan.
Yes.
So just on 14 there, we did the northern half first, correct?
Yes.
Now this is the southern half.
Yep, this is from Minnesota Highway 30 up to County State Highway 4.
Okay.
Correct. So that would be, that's planned for 2018. Yep.
We saw that on our tour.
Correct.
Okay.
We have the CASA 16 and Pleasant Street intersection control evaluation report is our next informational item. I've attached the entire report. I was planning on reading it to you guys word by word today, but I might lose my voice. There's just a couple of informational items that you might find interesting. Figure 3 in the report shows the proposed roundabout alternative that was considered in the evaluation. And really, I think I'll probably just jump to the conclusions, and then we can work our way back if there's any substantial questions. But the conclusions effectively state that the results of the warrants analysis indicate that the existing 2017 traffic volumes do not satisfy any Minnesota Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices traffic signal warrants. Traffic signal warrants are also used for justification of a roundabout. While the forecasted year 2037 volumes satisfy the Minnesota MUTCUD warrant requirements for traffic signal warrant number 2 only. The operational analysis results indicate that under the existing all-way stop control, the intersection operates with an acceptable level of service and will continue to do so under the forecasted year 2037 conditions. The traffic signal control and roundabout control alternatives would operate with acceptable levels of service under those forecasted conditions, with the roundabout alternative having the greatest overall delay versus signalization because of the limited peak hours where the Pleasant Street traffic is heavy. The safety analysis, the all-way stop control and the roundabout control alternatives have anticipated to have slightly less crashes than a traffic signal control alternative. As we know, all of our facts on roundabouts, the reduced conflict points are tremendously beneficial, and the number of crashes per year is literally like 1 different between the signal that's projected versus the roundabout or all-way stop, so it's really almost a negligible difference. And the page 18 of the report goes on to state, therefore a traffic signal is not practical at this intersection. And later, however, the existing 5-lane section provides better operations under always stop control than would be provided by a single-lane roundabout with the additional capital costs. Therefore, maintaining the existing always stop control is recommended, since this type of control would have no capital costs, require no right-of-way, and have a low delay. So, interesting, we looked at this ICE report was administered through the MPO and was reviewed by the policy committee after completion, that the in-place 4-way stop at Pleasant Street and CASA 16 Stolzman Road operates with an acceptable level of service. We could look at a signalization or roundabout down the road, but it really doesn't appear to be necessary. One item to note is that based on discussions between myself and the city engineer, the Maple Long Range Transportation Plan has a 1.5% traffic growth projection factor. Given the neighborhoods surrounding this intersection are fully developed, and you don't see any really massive developments coming online that will contribute to an additional growth, we went to a little bit more of a flat line 1% projection factor, which we think it was more reflective of what we're going to actually anticipate through this intersection.
Makes sense.
So, any questions on that report? Yep.
I had a couple comments. There was one part that wasn't accurate in the report that I just want to point out because I live there. That's my address is on Pleasant Street, and I go down that way quite a bit walking. Is that when they rebuilt this last summer, they took out the crosswalk area on one side. So Pleasant Street doesn't have sidewalks going on both sides. And once you get to the intersection going towards West Mankato, the side that goes towards the ball field, they took it out. So there's no longer a crosswalk area there. They curbed it. On the other side, they took it out, curbed it, took out the sidewalk that went about maybe 80 feet towards the field, just removed it all.
Okay.
So it's all gone. There's no more pedestrian access that direction at all. So it's a little bit changed. They changed the configuration of the intersection when they did it without, I think, asking anybody if they use it or
I'll note that
without concern to some of my neighbors
with the MPO.
because they asked about it.
Okay.
And then the other feedback we've gotten in our neighborhood from that area is, let's say kitty corner from the Stolzman hockey rink area. There's no sidewalk going along the school side where people go to school, which forces them, of course, on the other side of the street. There's a 5-foot sidewalk that goes along, they replace pieces of it.
Yep, and then there's a signalized crossing.
Then you go down to the signalized crossing.
Yep.
So that's some of the comments I've heard from people. They always wonder why there isn't, for people that live in the West Mankato side, that sidewalk along that side so that they can hook in and just keep on going to West Mankato. Bicycles, that kind of thing.
Yep.
So that's been a comment that's over the years always been brought up.
Sure.
Wondering why we don't have a sidewalk on the other side.
Sure. Yep.
Well, that goes with our whole comment that we talked about before about putting a pathway on Stolzman Road on the west side all the way to Park.
Yep, and if they wanted to do that, it would be on the other side of the street where we would maybe at that time look at putting a sidewalk across by the school side because otherwise they'd cross over, then cross back again. It wouldn't make sense.
As I was informed during the 16, the letter of intent after we had submitted that for the grant application, much of that wetland was actually purchased for flood mitigation as part of the Army Corps of Engineers project. So there could be several hurdles to jump through if we are going to put any kind of fill into that. So we'll have to work through that. But first and foremost, we need to get the grant application submitted to see if we're even successful before we worry about that.
That was submitted.
The letter of intent was submitted.
Oh, letter of intent.
The formal grant application. That's kind of the first stage.
Oh, I
and
see.
they vet the candidates, and then we have to submit the actual application.
I misunderstood.
Yep, that's fine.
But you hear what I'm saying with that sidewalk, it's on the school side. At some point.
Yeah, this report is really looking at the intersection functionality with respect to traffic volumes.
But not, even though they did cover pedestrians.
Yeah, it does take into account pedestrian safety and crossings, but it doesn't look at it from a pedestrian mobility standpoint.
The only changes that will occur down there, just so that weren't mentioned in the report because they don't know about it, is that we've been working as a neighborhood in this particular area to redevelop the park down there, which is about 5 acres of land. And so there'll be increased flow into that park probably because we're going to put a pavilion for picnicking. They'll put in play equipment for children and families. They'll put in, rebuild the ice rink for bike polo and for ice purposes. And then park benches and hard surface walkways for people who are challenged with walking.
Okay.
So it'll change. You'll see some more activity over the next 2 or 3 years down there, so it will change a little bit.
Yep, that's what those projection factors should be enough to cover that, those kind
Yeah,
of
probably.
fluctuations and
Probably.
swings. Just a couple of remaining miscellaneous items. County State Highway 57. There's a segment where the Cicada Trail is connected to the Minnesota River Valley Trail along our corridor. And as you may be aware, there's a severe erosion problem north of Minigasco, about 500 to 700 feet, that has actually caused the DNR to close that segment of the trail. That was old Minnesota Highway 22 that was turned back to Blue Earth County and was afterwards reconstructed or rehabilitated. We did discover an interesting twist that right-of-way that the trail is on is actually owned by Blue Earth County, so the DNR has their trail or their connector trail on our property. So that helped us have some leverage with respect to the erosion issue. We had already been working with the DNR on coming to a solution to fill in the void that was created. What happened was there was some drainage issues where the water would flow down the ditch, and at one point it would overtop the trail as a whole is a weir, which would be a nice flat laminar flow. What they decided to do was put another culvert in 24 inches in diameter, and that concentrated all of the flow with a pretty steep outfall, and that severely eroded the downstream landowner's field to a large chasm about 10 to 15 feet deep, very wide, so pretty massive impact. The landowner and the DNR were unable to come to a head as far as allowing an access agreement for the DNR to go in and make the repairs to refill the void. The landowner contacted the county, having worked with us before, and we're actually going to work with him to achieve an easement for the DNR and the county to make the repairs. The county will assist with the repairs by hauling some of the fill material. The DNR will be purchasing all of the fill material and provide all of the equipment to make the repairs. So this is a collaborative, good for the community to make this repair and get reopened to the public. So in addition to working on the access easement with the landowner, Jack is dealing with that right now, we will also be we are working on a collaborative maintenance agreement allowing the DNR to keep and operate their trail on county right-of-way, however, recognizing that it is county-owned land and affording us. This would be very similar to the agreement that we had entered into with the DNR for County State Highway 12 and the bridge over the DM&E Railroad, where the Cicada Trail runs over the bridge. So we'll be hoping to be making those repairs soon. Getting the trail reopened and traffic will also be limiting flow through that culvert so that this issue is mitigated and minimized.
That'll be part of the project. So you're gonna, how are you gonna mitigate that? How are you going
Right
to
now, we had proposed either putting a pipe inside of the 24-inch pipe at the top to only accept high flow at maybe 12-inch diameter, or the other option would be to put a weir in front of the inlet of the pipe so that it only accepts flow after about a foot of water has built up, and then it would only flow through the top half of the pipe. And that was one of the terms the landowner had. So we're working with the DNR. Good thing is the pipe's on our property, so if we want to do it, if they refuse, we'll go do it. So it does give us some flexibility. And
those pipes that they had at that presentation went to the other day, that to eliminate some of the pressure off of those, would a pipe like that be in a good place of use for something like that?
The baffle
Bill
pipes,
Douglas? Yeah.
This is more, I think, a product of the slope of the outfall.
Oh, okay.
It's a fairly steep slope down, like a 1-on-3, so it channelized it all, and then once it created a rivulet, it just ate it away. So I don't know if it'd be a good application in this spot, but something we could think about down the road if it continues to be problematic.
They want to get it fixed.
Yep.
I've been in contact with the landowner, so
okay, good.
I'm glad to hear you're working on it.
Yep. So one of the funny things at AMC when we sat in that presentation from one of our local consulting firms is that I think 2 out of the 5 designs that they were touting were on county projects. I know that piece of road, and I know that one, I know that crossing. So
Ricky Noonan had several county projects from Blue Earth County also, but not in such a good
light.
Good light. Lawsuit problem.
You've got Lime Township anyway, don't you, over that direction?
Yeah.
I mean, that's your district too.
And one last item, the Homeland Security Emergency Management Hazard Mitigation Grant upgrade for the property on River Park Drive. The grant has been awarded to Blue Earth County. We've submitted all of the necessary documentation to HESEM through this website portal that they require we use. So we're effectively waiting for the final grant agreement so that we can execute it, get their papal blessing to move forward with the acquisition and demolition of that property. So very arduous process, and it'll continue to be, but I'm glad we are where we are, and hopefully we can get it taken down before spring flows. That's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. Any
I don't have any.
questions of Ryan?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was,
Well, I do have
that
a
was-
comment.
That was great.
I went out again hiking around the Red Jacket Valley, park a few times in the last weeks, and boy, you can see where the parks crews have really worked hard to
Yes.
grub. I guess you call it grubbing, don't you, with that machine that kind of helps create the pathways for walking.
Yeah, it's kind of a grinding large mower, brush cutting machine.
Yeah.
Yep.
You tell they've done some pretty good
To define
major
those trails
work.
a little better and
Yeah.
clear back so that they can get through and the folks can get through comfortably.
Yep.
Have a
So
decent
it looks
line.
nice that they
Good, thank
work
you.
they did.
Yep.
So,
All right.
Thank you, Ryan.
Okay, thank you, Ryan.
Have a good
Thanks,
day.
Ryan.
Have a good rest of the day.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
yeah.
All right. Looks like we have
Michael.
Michael up. Taxpayer
Michael
Services.
Stauber.
Hi, Michael.
Morning, Michael.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I have a couple of different items for your attention today. The first one is on page 311 of your packet, or tab 12. And this is in reference to a request to adopt a resolution to approve the county's application for a state grant for voting equipment. In the 2017 legislative session, the legislature approved a $7 million cost-sharing grant for all counties to apply towards, and depending on the number of counties participating, statewide will receive anywhere from $91,700 to $270,000. It's based on a calculation of the number of precincts in each county that's eligible for the grant. It'll cover up to 75% of electronic rosters. Those are called poll pads in some instances, and then 25% of the cost of ballot tabulators, or our scanning equipment to tabulate the results in all of our precincts. So the application will be submitted at the end of this week, provided we have formal adoption today. It's due on the 15th, and then once we are approved for that, which would be a kind of a matter of them doing the computations at the state, we would be able to start purchases in 2018, which would align with our capital improvement plan for elections equipment. We very, very briefly talked at a work session a couple weeks back about the equipment purchase that we were planning on making there. And so I did give a little bit of a summary of that there for you as well. The electronic voting equipment that we're looking at using, those rosters, will be implemented for the 2018 election in August and November. And that will be started in Mankato, the City of Eagle Lake, and Lake Crystal. Just because the higher the volume of voters, the more beneficial that equipment will be. Then once we have that done, we have the potential to expand that to all of our other precincts. That will make the process more expedited for our voters, and it'll also assist us in our early voting, which is becoming a much larger portion of our voters in the county.
Yeah, what was the percentage?
We had about 25% of our voters in the November election that voted outside of their precinct on election day. That would be our mail balloters, our absentee balloters, and our folks that
That's
just
an
wanted to vote
amazing
in those
amount.
7 days. Yeah. And indications from other elections that have occurred since then show that that is continuing to increase. The city of Minneapolis ran out of ballots for their municipal elections because they didn't anticipate as many folks showing up, and they had to redistribute them last minute. So they got through it, but it's just showing that that is the way folks want to vote nowadays.
How is that tabulated? Then you have to do that here.
Yeah.
Do they use machines at all? Or?
Yep, those votes are still tabulated
Still
just like any other vote on election day, and that's where our second bullet point comes in there, is that we are also looking at updating our precinct level and our central tabulators. Because of all of those in-person votes prior to election day and those mail ballots that are coming back, we are looking at investing in a piece of equipment that can speed up the tabulating of those, so we don't have quite as much to finish up on that election day. And then we're also getting new equipment into the precincts, which will help us identify write-in votes and keep a better record of the image of the ballot for any future auditing purposes there. The machines will still count just like they do now, and they do that quite proficiently, but this will add another layer of that in terms of keeping a record of that ballot. So those are the two pieces of equipment, or types of equipment that we're looking at purchasing. This grant will go a long way in helping with that. Again, depending on how many other counties apply for it, the amount that will come to the county will vary. And so we're looking at getting at least 20% of our purchase covered through this, and up to 50%, because we will exceed those numbers for the maximum and the minimum that's paid there. So The rest of that balance will come from our technology fund for elections equipment, and then we also have arrangements set up with our cities and our townships to pay towards equipment. So what this resolution that's in front of you today will do will authorize me to submit the application so that we can receive the $92,000 to $270,000, and then we'll go forward with our purchases next year. Any questions on that?
How old is our old equipment?
The equipment was purchased in 2006.
Okay.
So it's getting close to 14 years old by the time it'll be fully implemented for the 2020 elections.
It's only been used about 8 times.
Isn't that something? Yep.
It's astonishing to me.
The useful life on the equipment is about 10 to 15 years, so we're
10 times.
We're getting there. Exactly right. Yep.
It's just that I just have a hard time wrapping my hands around it. It's been in storage for 98% of its life.
Absolutely, and a lot of the useful life piece comes into play with the software that operates the equipment.
Yeah.
It just gets outdated.
I understand all that.
Yeah, but I know, isn't that something?
Because of the old days with the...
I would imagine, though, that equipment's a lot like our iPads and everything else. Is after 5 years, it's basically a dinosaur.
Yep.
That's what you're doing because you got the software and stuff.
Yep. Yeah. They
you
call
got
it
the old election machines years ago with the tabs pushed down, and they would last forever.
Yeah. We have very sturdy right now. They're called memory cards that go into each machine. They've now been replaced by flash drives, which are just easier to use. You don't have to have a separate device to plug them into. You don't have to have separate access to that. It plugs in more efficiently now under the new system. So yeah, it just gets antiquated, and unfortunately it gets used just a few times every couple of years.
A computer or an iPad is used every day, you know, so when it gets used up, it has some life, but these have been sitting most of their lives. So. It is what it is, but
I would make the motion for the
what is it?
Resolution for approval of the 2017 voting equipment grant application.
Okay.
I'll second.
So it's seconded, moved and seconded. I just have, how much is it for each one?
I did bring some of that information for you, thinking you might be interested in that. The electronic rosters that we talked about there are about $1,300 per precinct or per device. Those will be covered 75% by the state grant, and then the other equipment is $3,400 and $5,300. So adding those two together, you're looking at just under $10,000 a precinct to equip. Yeah. And those two devices would be covered at that 25% level. So that's where, depending on how many counties participate in the state grant, we could have up to half of that funded for the county, or 20% would be on the minimum side if we get the least in the grant. So.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question too.
Go ahead.
Just wondering, I did see, I can't remember which township it was, or if it's a city, small city, they have the option, don't they, of passing a resolution to not have a precinct location any longer for their balloting or for their voting, and just have it all mail in.
Correct. Yep, you're referring to the mail ballot provisions, which are allowed by state law. Any of our townships are eligible for that, because if you're a township outside of the metro area, you're eligible for that no matter your voting population. Small cities outside of the metro area have to have under 500 registered voters, and so all of our small cities that can qualify have already elected for mail ballot. And we have, I think we're up to about 20 precincts now, townships that are, or precincts that are voting by mail outside. So you're right, we just had
another one.
Who came through?
Was it out by Maple River area? I don't know.
Good Thunder just passed their resolution, and we've got a couple more that are interested in it who I think are going to be going that route now after the special election.
So the increase is going to increase quite a bit.
Yep. It's when we do the computations for them, it is more cost effective for them to have those ballots, because they don't have to invest in the $10,000 for equipment and pay for polling place workers on election day and staff all of that. So,
That's really
nice.
So that is an option that's out there, and the equipment that we're purchasing is scaled appropriately to assist in that regard, so that we can continue to pick up those mail ballot precincts if that's what the townships choose to do.
Okay. All right. Well, we got the motion then. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. And then you have the tax forfeiture research fee.
Correct. Yes. Thank you, folks. We're moving on now to page 313, or tab 13 in your packet. And this is a request to establish a new fee. This fee is going to refer only to tax forfeited properties. So when we look at the likelihood of using this fee, I can say pretty honestly that we don't expect to use this fee, but we want to have it in place. What this fee does is it helps recover some of the costs that the county and the county's taxpayers would bear in very specific instances where a financial institution, a title insurance company, or another mortgage industry company would be requesting the Taxpayer Services Department to certify that we've followed all the steps in the tax forfeiture process. By its very nature, the tax forfeiture process requires us to certify that, but what many counties in the state, and a few of them down in the southern part of the state, are getting are specific requests where they want it documented for a specific parcel. And so that requires multiple hours of taxpayer service staff time. And what some counties have done in response to that is create a fee that they can bill back to that financial institution, to that title company, to have them actually cover some of the cost of that research. It does, like I said, require multiple hours of staff time because they're going through the process for each individual parcel and documenting when the notices were published, who was notified, how it was posted, and that sort of thing. So this fee would be set up for that. As I said, we don't anticipate these hardly at all. We haven't had any requests. We just wanted to have this fee in place in case we did get that request. LeSueur County has a similar fee, Olmsted County has a fee, and then the Metro has a fee as well. Metro counties have a fee related to that. Do you have any questions on that?
Just a question.
Drew?
Just it brought to mind something that AMC has been, the Environment and Natural Resources has on their policy request that we put forward our policy platforms and things like that. And one of them is that it's dealing with this tax forfeited properties of blighted properties, and that there's an expense that occurs. A lot of counties have already established an account where they keep some funds to help with some of those issues, but a lot of counties do not have that. And so we're requesting that the state help support in some manner reimbursement for some of the costs associated with tax forfeited blighted properties. Absolutely. So just related, it's related to this because you're asking for something that's related.
Yeah. So this fee would be specific to the county efforts there. What you're referring to, or I think you're referring to, is that when we have a property forfeit, if it has any contamination or environmental concerns with it, the county is responsible for those expenses because we become the keeper of that property and we have obligations to secure it. We had some potential risk with that with the gas station that forfeited just off of Riverfront Drive a few years ago. Fortunately, we were able to work with the city to get a grant to help us with some of the cleanup and the investigation on that, but that's exactly what that fund would be for. And so that would be a piece of legislation that AMC is pushing forward that I'm aware of that would be very helpful to the county.
That particular property, I think a Brownsfield grant was given, wasn't it, to help do some research on it?
Yep. There was a grant received to actually do the study to check for contamination, and then we found very limited contamination, fortunately. So there were some additional funds with, I think, the new owner who purchased it to do some cleanup work. But yeah, that is a huge liability for many counties.
A lot of counties have a lot of them, so it costs a lot of money.
Okay, well, I'll move approval of the...
Got a motion to approve and second.
Fee.
All right, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for all your work. Thank you,
Have
Mike.
a good day.
Thank
Thanks
you
a lot,
for everything.
Michael.
Okay. We gotta go back to administrative.
We've got to hear the chair's report. Been sitting on the edge of my seat all morning.
This is just exciting.
Oh, man, you guys.
It's like
Well,
waiting
I
to
did-
open your presents at Christmas time.
I know it.
Well, it's November 29th. I had my Kiwanis. That's not how I got my cold, though. But I spent 4 hours when we were out at the Kiwanis lights. If you've done that now, they've really got it organized where you move around. And you just go one to the other, and you get a break, 10-minute break, and you go back out again.
I did it last year. It was a lot of fun.
It worked pretty good. And then Thursday, November 30th, we had RCF. That was at the Burritos Express, and we actually critiqued the place. That's down there in the mall.
I like that place.
Yeah, it's pretty good, but they nobody knows about it, and it's hard to find it.
They have very good luncheon specials there, Mark. Very good.
Yep, but anyway, we were there, and that was one of the things we did. Then Friday, December 1st, was Semrex, that was in Casson. And we discussed a regional plans. PCA wants us to do a regional plan for our solid waste, or for our solid waste and everything for each, and our like for Ponderosa, they want a regional plan, and we have some questions. Our county has some questions, or with Scott, we have some questions about it. I don't know if that's what we'll end up doing, but anyway, that was a big discussion. And then December 4th, 5th, of course, was AMC. And like everyone else, we all kept busy. There were a lot of good workshops and so forth. And department heads was on December 6th. And that would be my report. I know you all were happy to hear that. Okay.
That was great.
Yeah.
I am so informed.
Okay, then we would have the back to administrative services.
First up would be the county board minutes for November 21st.
Move the minutes.
Move the minutes, is there a second? Okay, all in favor of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. Okay, we got the bills for the weeks, and you notice we
So
got
moved.
Second.
3 weeks. Been moved in second. Any questions on the
I've got
bills?
a couple questions. The first one is on the first week, it's Daikin, D-A-I-K-I-N, applied. It's equipment repair. it wasn't very much. I just didn't know what it was. Hey, I got him looking. This is good.
You might win the prize today.
I don't think so.
It's a repair of a chiller leak that occurred here in the courthouse. So
A chiller.
Chiller air conditioner systems.
And then I'm pretty sure I know what this is for. It's INS Group is site and ground improvements. There's a contracted service for $33,775, and then site ground improvements for $107,000. Is that for the new building, or?
The $107,000 is part of the work that they're doing on the government center project. The $33,000 are related to ditch work that they've done.
And there's one on Landwehr Construction is maintenance contract services.
That is some Class 5 gravel that the Public Works Department has purchased.
Class 5.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and I think it's in Wasco Construction, rental assistance. I just didn't know what it was. What's it for?
If it's rental assistance, it's probably part of our supportive housing program. But what week was that in?
It could have been the second week. Yeah, it was second week.
I'll double check that answer. Yeah, it's actually a group residential housing program. So a rent for one of the clients in Human Services Department.
Okay, that's all I had.
All right. Anybody else? Any more questions? Drew, go ahead.
So the first week there's the First Choice Security contracted services for $300. I was just curious what that is.
That is an annual fire alarm test that's been done in some county buildings.
Oh, okay, so we contract out for that. They come in and check it out.
Yes.
And then the Fisher Wallace Laboratories, I'm not familiar with that. It's $8,135.
What was the name? I'm sorry.
Fisher Wallace. Maybe it's some sort of testing regarding corrections or something?
It's AMHI flexible funds.
So this was a purchase through the South Central Community-Based Initiative for some crisis flex funds. I'd have to dig into it further to know exactly what the purchase was, but they have flexible funds that support people with mental health needs
I see.
in that 10-county project.
I see, so it's probably for checking their blood levels of medications and things like that.
Could very well be.
General Electric Company, I'm just wondering what we do with them. It was $86,000, 630.
And it says refunds.
Is that for like a tax?
It's a tax court stipulation, so refunding property tax, they must have
See,
taken
we've had
us
a
to
lot
court.
of those on this.
I know there's a
That's
big one
correct.
on there too for
Right.
some 200,000 they had to give back.
That's correct.
Yeah. And then Pomp's Tire Service. Pomp's Tire Service is 9,600 even.
It's a lot of tires.
Not really.
No.
Not for a big equipment, I just didn't know. I'm assuming it must be
Yeah.
If it's public works
something
tires.
big.
it would
Yeah,
be.
that's not a lot of tires.
That's not really a lot.
Yeah, it's probably one set.
Yeah,
For them.
depends on what they're buying. It's for one of those big loaders.
They are tires for the Public Works Department.
Okay.
It's just one of those tires.
Then the second week, there's a U.S. Bank. I'm just assuming that $6 million is a transfer from checking into some kind of
That
a-
would be correct. As we collect taxes in October, November, we're moving money around, so that's
Okay.
what that represents.
And then SRF has a consulting thing there. Public Works Construction, 37,000. Second week. And I'm thinking it could be even that study that was just talked about. It's hard to know, but either that or the roundabout. SRF. Second week.
That was professional services provided for County State Aid Highway number 1. So working on the
Oh,
county
working out
road
there
work.
for traffic and things. Last one, Elior Incorporation, I think it's a new name that they've changed or something. It's for our board of prisoner fees and stuff. It's 17,000 on the third week. It's Elior, E-L-I-O-R Incorporated. And I was just curious if that's a new, kind of a new one on the block or.
It is, well, Elior purchased Avians, I believe was
That's what I
the
thought.
previous
I
one, and
just
so
confirmed
it's,
that, okay.
it's the same company, just purchased by a new entity, so it's the same contract.
Okay. It just throws me off when I see it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
All right. All those, you got the motion to pay the bills. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. All right. Looks like we've got the Human Resources.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I have number 3 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. Just have informational items for you today. We did receive a resignation of a care coordinator in the public health unit, and so we've initiated recruitment to refill that position. We also received a resignation of a custody officer, and so we've initiated recruitment to refill that position. And then resignation of a social worker, again in human services, so we'll be refilling that developmental disabilities position. Then the last resignation comes from a taxpayer services lead worker, and so we're looking to revamp that position a little bit, and so the renewal of that will occur at a later point. Last item is a financial assistance specialist that has completed 6 months of employment and is eligible for a salary adjustment.
All right.
Any questions on the HR?
You know, I
agenda?
don't have any questions except that I know the retirement of Christy Herrick as a long-time social worker for Blue Earth County. She's done an amazing job. I've worked with her personally, and you know, it's I don't know how many years she worked. Quite a few years she's worked for Blue Earth County. I'm sure she worked under you when you were director there. And
Yeah, I don't know the exact length of her time, but she, along with a number of the other resignations here, are long-time employees.
long time.
I think it's
and
29 years.
You know, it's we're
Certainly could be.
you
I don't know the
know,
exact.
I'm very happy for her retirement, and but it's going to take some big shoes to fill when with the. You know, I know her personally. That's why I'm bringing her up. But I know all of them are very important, and we were pretty lucky to have them working for us, and happy for their retirement.
I was going to mention Bonnie Fisk too. Hasn't she been here quite a while?
Yeah, I believe Bonnie came before I did, so
Yeah, I mean, we're
nearly
talking some
30
long-term,
years.
long-term seasoned employees.
And, you know, that's indicative of the fact that we have a workforce that is reaching, you know, the end of their careers, and some of that institutional knowledge will be leaving our organization. Hopefully it comes in small enough waves that we're able to overcome that loss and replace them with people that can learn from other coworkers.
All right.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Thank you for all of them, their service here.
Yep. Okay, so now we have the professional services contract.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 4 in your packet is a request to remove from the table a contract that was previously considered by the board back in August. At that time, the county board did table the approval of that contract and asked that the county attorney review the contract. That has now been completed, and so I'm asking you to remove this from the table so we could continue to consider that contract.
I'll move the motion.
Second. Moved second. Any discussion?
Just a couple comments.
Okay.
I think it's helpful, you know, when we have these big, large contract.
We should vote on the motion.
Yeah, we have to vote on the motion.
Yes, you need to remove it from the table.
remove it from the
please.
board.
Discussion on the
Go
motion.
ahead.
Okay.
Yep, so, all right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carries. Okay, now you.
Okay, now it's off the table.
Yeah.
Now should we make a motion to?
No, there's
already
no
a
more.
motion in place.
Now we
That's
can
right,
talk about
Now
it.
we can talk about it.
Okay, that when we have these big, you know, any kind of contracts that aren't routine, especially if we're not the ones generating them, I just think it's a good policy that we have either a attorney that we hire or a county attorney or somebody that has time to at least review them and look them over before they come to the board. I just think that'd be a good policy to have going forward if we could, especially when we aren't the ones creating the contract itself. You know what I mean? It kind of gives us a little bit of a opportunity then to have some other eyeballs kind of go over it and look at it.
Sure.
Do you know what the outcome was with when the county attorney reviewed this?
I would say the majority of the issues were clarifications and, you know, items where we had some blanks because at that time it was still early on in the process of hiring the construction manager, and there had been some time delays in bringing it forward to the board, so we adjusted some of those pieces. Probably the biggest item that was discussed between the vendor and the county was the insurance requirements, making sure that they had the appropriate levels of insurance, which they did. So generally it was just maybe cleanup types of things that were done in this interim period.
Thank you.
I have another question then too. Mr.
Go
Chair.
ahead.
I noticed that I was going through the contract again, and it's still under the commissioning. It says nothing. It says there isn't any, it doesn't exist or something. And I'm just wondering how that's going to be handled. Is that handled through our construction manager that does it then? Or they have, ISG has no relationship with any commissioning, which is where they look at the due diligence on the machinery once it's put in place. In other words, they go back in and test it to make sure it's functioning at a level it's supposed to be functioning at for our HVAC systems or for valves or for, you know, those kinds of things.
I believe that will be looked at through a separate contracting process. Kraus Anderson and ISG will not be directly involved in that at this point in time.
Yeah.
But they've said to us that will be something that the county will have to consider outside of this work.
Okay, so ISG will do that separately at a different time, or the manager?
Well, the county will have to contract with someone to
Somebody to
do
do
that
it.
if we wish to have
Okay.
that done.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, we got the on-sale intoxicating liquor.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 5 in your packet is renewal of a number of on-sale liquor licenses. We have 4 entities that have previously received these on-sale liquor licenses. We do have 1 new on-sale liquor license. Terrace View Golf Course has requested a license. Both the county attorney and sheriff have reviewed these license applications, and the fees have been paid, and so we're recommending approval of these 5 licenses.
Move to approve.
And moved second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Great. And we have
Tobacco.
back to the tobacco one. Yep.
Yes, and Mr. Chair and Commissioners, these are all renewals, and so each of these entities, all 8 of them, have submitted the $150 license fee, and so we're recommending approval of these tobacco licenses.
So moved.
Second. Moved second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Then we just have our financial status report.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, this is the report through the end of November, so we're 11 months into our fiscal year. You'll see that our total revenues are exceeding our total expenses at this point in the year. Now the second half taxes have been collected. We're sitting above last year's level by quite a bit. Part of that is the $10 million of bonding that we did for the refinancing of the Justice Center, so that kind of distorts the year-to-year comparisons. When you compare to the budget, we're pretty much on track on the revenue side. We had anticipated a fairly large deficit with our 2017 budget, but because of the delays in getting the Government Center project off the ground, we will not be using that much fund balance that had been anticipated. On the expenditure side, we're a little bit behind the pace on our budget, largely due to the delays in some of our road projects. We did not accomplish as much because of the weather this year and some other delays, so we should finish the year in pretty good shape compared to where we anticipated at the beginning of the year. In terms of the enterprise fund, you'll see that there the expenses are exceeding our revenues to a degree. Some of that is related to some catch up on the contract with Ponderosa Management as we debated whether we would continue to work with them. So there's been some catch up in that particular line, plus the additional expenditures for the additional cell out at the landfill. On the second page, you'll see our total county funds are sitting at $108 million at this point. This is kind of, again, one of the high points of the year in terms of having those taxes received, and we'll see that number come down a little bit in December as that last month of expenses hits those lines. Other than that, again, things seem to be chugging along in great shape, so I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Okay, any questions about that?
Well, everything's on target for this evening's meeting too, then I'm just going to ask you.
Yes, we'll have our budget hearing tonight at 6 o'clock.
All right.
Looks good.
Yep. Looks good, is right. Oh, let's see. Well, with that, I'll call for
I would move we recess to
recess.
Charlie's Restaurant for lunch.
lunch. Okay. We move to recess.
Good job,
I can't
Mr. Chair.
remember, what did